You know what? Let's cover something recent. Yeah, that'll do. Rise and Shine is another title produced by Adult Swim Games, and they've had a pretty nice track record. The game reminds me of a cross between Limbo and, weirdly enough, Rocket Birds. The premise being that you are a child in a world filled with video game characters that has been invaded by war. Alright, sounds like a fun idea. Let's begin. The game starts with a bit of text. Game Earth has been invaded. Game Earth? Look, if this stars female personifications of Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo, I'm getting out of here. We begin with our story already in progress. A kid with a gun called Rise looks over a destroyed city when a massive robot shows up. Also, thanks for reminding me that Flappy Bird existed. Really feel that was timely. Rewind an hour earlier, making this scene kinda pointless, and Rise is in a mall that has been attacked by a rejected Gears of War character? So the Gears of War people are going to be the villains. Oh, okay, I can be down with that. There could be some fun jokes to have at the series' expense. It's a silly franchise, and as a fan of it, I'm curious to see what jokes we get. Oh, well, let's move on then. So, Discount Link here gets killed and gives a talking gun called Shine to our hero. The gameplay has you aiming and shooting, while doing a little bit of puzzling with the other items you get. You can even take cover at very specific areas, which kinda reminds me a bit of Rocket Birds. But you have a lot more freedom when you're aiming. The controls feel very tight, and many of the deaths I had felt like they were my fault, and not the game's. Speaking of death, the game feels a lot like Limbo in the fact that you're trying to progress from screen to screen, where you will either find another puzzle, or something trying to kill you. That, and there's little kids dying violently. The puzzles aren't too bad, as they have you messing around with different additions to your gun. You have remote control bullets that only work with the signal, and explosive bullets. You also have another ammo type used against machines, but that's as far as it goes for new items you find. I felt like they could have added more mechanics, as the puzzles start to feel pretty basic later on. The combat feels good, but quickly suffers from lack of enemy variety. A lot of the enemies are pretty boring to fight. There are a few fun little bosses, but a lot of the enemies just kinda hover around and shoot at you. It's not too bad due to how good the controls feel, but it starts to get stale after a while. The presentation for the game is pretty great. As you can see, there's a lot of detail in the backgrounds, plenty of which you'll only see once. Just look at this scene on the bridge. A lot of the characters are well animated, especially any of the big machines. You can tell whoever animated them really seemed to like robots. While the visuals are pretty nice, the video game world theme is pretty weak. I figured there'd be a few more jokes, but there isn't much here. You see some famous characters in the background, or as corpses, and there's no joke to it. It's just, hey look, that's Laurel! He's dead! I know you want these to be lawyer-friendly cameos, but they're so pointless, you might as well not have them. The humor really falls flat for me, as they don't really try to subvert expectations or anything like that. They just kill some characters with Newgrounds-esque violence. When you get to this big bulky guy showing up and says he's gonna protect you, you know he's gonna die. The game has set the mood by showing people get gunned down. It's not really that shocking to see Link getting killed. I've seen Nintendo do worse things to him. With the potential of a world set in video games, you could do some funny stuff, but no, it's just things like, hey, explosive barrels, am I right? Just pointing to a cliché and calling it a cliché isn't that funny. If I shot the barrels and water came out instead, that would have subverted my expectations, and it could even be used in a puzzle with your electric bullets. But the game doesn't seem to know what to do with its setting. What's stranger still is that you don't fight these space grunt guys that often. You'll come across them now and again, but you'll mainly just shoot a ton of robots. And I mean a ton of robots. Okay, there's like one robot in Gears of War and he helps open doors for you, but is this related to that at all? Or did they just get bored and decide to have robots? The fact you fight sorta space marines really doesn't add up to much. You could replace them all with robots and the game would largely remain unchanged. If you want to parody how 7th Gen was ruled by bleak military shooters, why not make your foes an army of faceless soldiers with no personality? That could potentially be terrifying. The flimsy theme does not hinder the gameplay at all, but with a game like this, I feel it really hurts the experience. It almost feels like it was added last minute. When it shows 8-bit characters, they don't mesh well to this beautifully detailed world. Also, I don't know why Duck Hunt Dog is here, or why he looks like he came out of a creepypasta. If you got rid of the video game stuff and replaced it with something more cohesive, I think it would have really helped. I mean, look at some of this art. I'd love to explore a world tailor-made by these developers, as opposed to some boring, bleak city that happens to have a few companion cubes in it. So I'm gonna quickly talk about the end of the game, so spoilers or whatever. You find out that Marcus Phoenix is your dad, Mark Cole. What is that, did Marcus and Cole do the fusion dance? And no, they don't tell any jokes with that, it's just a guy that looks like Marcus. You beat him and find a computer that controls the world, because the game is still trying to connect to video games. It's a fourth wall breaking moment that might be nice, but so many other games have already done stuff like this that it loses most of its impact. Which makes me think this game has probably been in production for quite some time. That would explain a few of the references. You click on the enemies and that's it. It just sorta ends. That's kinda lame. Rise and Shine isn't too bad, but it's pretty simple and lasts only about 3 to 4 hours. Less if you know what you're doing. The theme is flimsy and doesn't prop up the game very well, but the art is nice and the controls feel good. I'm definitely curious to see what else the developers come out with next, as they have some serious potential. For $12, I don't think I'd really recommend this, but if you're curious, check it out when it goes down in price. If you don't care about the theme and just want a bit of puzzles and action, you'll probably have some fun with this. But as for me, I felt the game could have done a lot more with what it had.